Okay, so picture this. It's a Monday. Just a completely mundane, forgettable Monday.
The definition of one, yeah.
Right. You're laughing with your best friend. I mean, you know that kind of laugh where your stomach actually hurts and you can't breathe?
Oh, absolutely.
The sun is out. You're thinking about what you're going to do this weekend. And then just screeching tires, a massive truck,
Impact.
and then silence.
Absolute silence.
Yeah.
Not a transition.
Yeah.
Not your life flashing before your eyes. Just gone.
It's terrifying because of how, how normal the setup is. We all have that Monday. We all have that lunch break. And the source material we're looking at today starts exactly there.
It really does.
Welcome back to the Deep Dive. Today we're looking at a source that is, frankly, one of the most intense first-person accounts I think I've ever come across. It's a testimony from a teenager named Robert.
Mm-hmm.
And I have to say, I've read hundreds of near-death experiences, NDEs, for our research here, and just out of my own curiosity. But this one feels different.
It does. There's a certain texture to it that feels very raw. And what makes Robert's story so compelling, and let's be honest, pretty heavy, is the time frame.
The time frame,
Yeah. According to the medical staff on scene, he was clinically dead for exactly 3 minutes.
3 minutes. I mean, that's the length of a pop song. It's barely enough time to make a cup of coffee.
Right. But in those 3 minutes, Robert claims he went on a journey that felt like an eternity. He describes a judgment, a descent into a very, very graphic hell, a rescue, and then a view of heaven that, well,
it's not the fluffy cloud version you see in cartoons.
not even close,
Yeah.
no. And I think it's important we kind of set the stage here, the mission for this deep dive. The source material is very religiously charged. It's a Christian testimony.
It is.
But whether you're a believer, a total skeptic, or somewhere in between, the narrative itself offers this fascinating and frankly chilling look at human fragility.
Exactly. We're not here to preach. We're here to unpack what he says he saw. Because the specific details, they are haunting. And the core warning he brings back isn't just be a good person. It's about something he calls distraction.
Precisely. It challenges this whole concept of like performance faith versus real surrender. It's a warning about how short time really is.
So let's get into it. Who was this kid, Robert, before the accident?
That's the part that's so striking. He was just so normal. He describes himself as an absolutely ordinary teenager, waking up late, groaning when his mom calls him for breakfast,
Pulling the covers over his head.
Exactly, the universal teenage experience.
And that context is so important.
Yeah.
He mentioned scrolling his phone, ignoring his mom, worrying about school drama. He says, and this is a direct quote from the source, "If you ask me what I was thinking about, it definitely wasn't God."
But he wasn't like against faith, though. That's a key distinction he makes. He went to church, he sat through the sermons for his mom's sake.
It was a routine.
Just background noise. He was checking a box. Which just sets up the tragedy perfectly, doesn't it? He goes to school, has this great lunch he describes with his friend, where they're laughing so hard, and then he's just walking to the parking lot.
The description of the accident itself is so brutal in how fast it is. He hears the tires, turns his head, sees the truck, and then impact. Pain explodes, the world spins, and then silence.
And this is where the NDE, the experience, really kicks in.
Yeah.
It's that suddenness he emphasizes. He says the sky was frozen, people were standing still, but something felt wrong. He says, I wasn't cold anymore. And he realizes he's not even touching the ground. He's floating.
That's a classic out-of-body experience marker, right? He looks down and sees his own body, twisted on the pavement, lifeless. He sees his friends screaming his name. And this detail really stuck with me. He tries to comfort her. He actually reaches out to touch her shoulder to say, hey, I'm right here.
But his hand passes right through her. He says, like smoke.
Like smoke. That is such a specific, visceral way to describe it. It's not just that he couldn't touch her. It's that he'd lost all the density. He'd become something else.
And that's the moment he knew.
Yeah. Oh, I'm dead. And, usually in these stories, this is where the warm, fuzzy light shows up, the tunnel. The peace.
Robert didn't get the warm, fuzzy tunnel.
No, he did not. He describes a transition that is just violent. He felt a pull, a strong, unrelenting force dragging him away. He was being taken.
And he ends up in this place he calls the void. The description is thick darkness, like ink or tar. And this cold, not a winter cold, but a soul-sinking cold.
It's sensory deprivation, but also overload of the wrong kind. He hears whispers, unfriendly whispers. He feels like he's sinking. This is not a neutral waiting room. It feels hostile.
But then, rescue. A voice just commands stop, and everything freezes.
And then light. But he talks about this light differently than I've heard before. He says it was alive, that it cut through the darkness like fire through paper.
This is his encounter with Jesus. And notice the reaction isn't immediately a warm hug. It's exposure. The light pierces through him, he says, and just exposes every thought, every action, every secret.
He calls it a life review. And we've heard this term, but he explains it differently. It's not just watching a movie of his life. He felt the emotions of every single person he had ever interacted with.
Which is, that's a profound concept. Radical empathy just forced on you. He felt the pain his lies caused. He felt the consequences.
And the key insight he offers is that he wasn't being punished by some external judge. He was being shown the truth of who he was. And that truth was hard to look at.
It strips away all our justifications, doesn't it? You can't say, oh, I didn't mean it, when you can literally feel how it landed on someone else.
Right, but then the vision shifts. He's shown a world on fire, people walking willingly toward destruction, and Jesus says this chilling phrase, "This is what is coming."
And that's when the floor just drops out again, literally. The light fades, and he's plunged back into darkness. But this time, it's not a void, it's populated.
This is the part of the source that gets really graphic, and honestly, it's pretty disturbing to read. He describes the smell first.
Burning flesh and decay.
And the sound. Endless, layered screams.
He's in hell, or a vision of it. And what's so terrifying is it's not just, random monsters. He sees faces.
He sees a friend. That moment in the story, it actually made me put the source down for a minute. He sees a face he recognizes in the flames. A guy from school he used to joke around with.
Someone just like him.
Oh.
Who didn't take faith seriously.
Exactly. And this is the detail that gave me goosebumps. Robert says he looked into his friend's eyes, and he didn't just see pain, he saw
regret.
Regret.
That's the torture, isn't it? The source emphasizes it wasn't just physical pain, it was the total crushing awareness of a missed opportunity.
Right.
Robert tries to help him, instinctively reaches out.
But he stopped, and the explanation he's given is, well, it's a heavy one. He's told, they chose this.
That is a big theological statement. The idea that hell is a door locked from the inside. The source claims these individuals just kept rejecting the alternative until it was too late. It reframes hell not as a dungeon God throws people into,
but as the end result of a lifetime of saying no. It makes it about autonomy. But Robert gets pulled out of there, right? He's rescued again.
He is. But even when he's back in the light, he realizes he isn't alone. There are things lurking in the shadows.
The demons. He describes them as ancient, hollow, with these red glowing eyes, and they're taunting him. They're saying, you are ours.
Which is terrifying. Robert is standing there next to Jesus, and these things are still laying claim to him.
How is that possible?
Well, it creates this fascinating, almost legalistic dynamic in the narrative. He asks, why are they here? And the answer he gets is that every sin, every time he ignored God, gave these entities a legal right or proximity to it.
Like he was opening a door without knowing it.
Exactly. It frames sin not just as breaking a rule, but as giving access to a hostile power, like leaving a digital backdoor open. You might not see the hackers, but you gave them a way in.
Wow. Okay, so we move from the pit to the peak. The scene shifts again. Now he's standing before these massive golden gates. It's heaven. He feels this overwhelming sense of home.
But this is where the story takes another sharp turn from the standard, I went to heaven and it was beautiful narrative.
Yeah.
He sees people walking toward the gates.
Right. And some get in, but others, they get stopped. He sees people being dragged away by some invisible force, and they're screaming.
They're screaming, but I know God.
This is that performance faith concept we mentioned. The source is very specific here. These people are shouting that they did the right things, they went to church, they knew the songs.
By all external standards, they were good people.
But the gates don't open, and Jesus says, they never truly knew me.
And there it is. The huge distinction between knowing about someone and actually knowing them. The source frames it as the difference between checking boxes, church, sermons, charity, and actually having a surrendered heart.
Robert says that Jesus looked through him at this moment, saw every secret, but with love, not anger.
But the standard for entry wasn't, did you show up on Sunday? It was, did you give me your life?
It completely strips away the cultural side of religion, doesn't it? You can't fake it at the gate. And to illustrate this, Robert is shown a vision of earth again, but with spiritual eyes.
This part was wild. He sees sin as a physical substance. Gossip is like a dark smoke suffocating people. Greed is a black tar on their hands. Lies are actual snakes.
It visualizes the corruption. It makes the abstract concrete. It's like an augmented reality overlay showing the spiritual health of the world. But the most disturbing part of this vision is the marks.
Yeah, he sees people with invisible marks on their foreheads, either light or darkness. And then he sees the Book of Life, a massive book glowing with fire. He sees names written in it, but then he sees names that are fading.
This is a detail that he says haunts him. Names that are blank or are actively fading away. These represent people who started faithful, maybe had that childhood belief.
But they chose the world. They let the distraction take over, and their connection was just dissolving.
It creates this insane sense of urgency. Robert realizes that people walking around laughing, scrolling on their phones, they are right on the edge of eternity, and they have absolutely no idea.
He specifically says some of the people with fading names were sitting in church pews. They thought they were safe, they were comfortable.
But spiritually, they were dying. It's about that drift. You don't lose your faith in one big moment. It just fades out while you're busy with other things.
And then things reach a climax. A massive angel appears.
The messenger of judgment.
Yes. The angel announces that the door will close. And Jesus turns to Robert and gives him his mandate, his mission. He says, tell them.
Tell them. That's the reason he's sent back. Not just to finish high school or have a second chance at fun. He's sent back to be a warning.
And the return is just as violent as the departure. He says he slammed back into his body. The pain's instantaneous. He gasps for air. And the very first thing he hears is a nurse saying,
"You were gone for 3 minutes."
3 minutes.
The contrast is just staggering. He lived what felt like a lifetime of trauma and judgment and revelation. He saw the very architecture of the afterlife.
And on Earth, it was a commercial break. It completely warps your perception of time.
So Robert comes back, and obviously life is never the same.
How could it be? The source talks about the aftermath. Nightmares, PTSD. He tries to tell people what he saw.
And they think he's crazy. His friends joke that he's touched by heaven. His parents chalk it up to trauma from the crash.
Which just alienates him even more.
Yeah.
But he sticks to the message. And I think this is where we have to land, on his core takeaway. Because the scariest part of his story wasn't really the demons.
No, you're right. It was the reason people were in hell. He says the people there, the ones dragged away from the gates, they weren't all like evil supervillains.
No. He says they were just too busy.
That phrase, that hit me hard.
It's the banality of the danger, right?
Yeah.
The source emphasizes it's not about actively hating God. It's about being so distracted by the noise of life, the phone, the career, or social media, that you just drift right past the most important thing.
He calls it the 3-minute warning. You never know when you're 3 minutes away from that line.
Exactly. Robert thought he had decades. He had minutes. And his warning is that we are all in that same position all the time. We just don't hear the truck coming.
So let's unpack this for you listening right now. We've covered a lot. The OBE, the life review, the hellscape, the fading names. But if you boil it all down, Robert sees this clear distinction between checklist Christianity and a real relationship. He sees that our perception of time is incredibly deceptive. What do we do with that practically?
Well, the message from the source seems to be about waking up. Robert describes people on Earth as sleepwalking toward a cliff, consumed by things that, from his new perspective, just didn't matter at all. So whether you accept the theology or not, the metaphor is powerful. Are you living intentionally, or just scrolling through life until the screen goes black?
It brings me back to that thought of the fading names. It forces you to ask yourself, am I fading? That's a heavy question to ask yourself on your morning commute.
It is. But Robert's testimony also suggests that as long as there is breath, the name can be rewritten. The ink isn't dry until those 3 minutes are up. That's the hope inside the horror. The command to tell them implies there's still time to change the trajectory.
And I think that's why you shared this. He says, I never thought I'd be sharing something like this, but after what happened to me, I can't stay silent. He knows he sounds crazy to some, but the urgency just outweighs the embarrassment.
Exactly. He's acting on that mandate. He saw the book and the blank spaces. He doesn't want anyone else to fall into that void he saw.
Man, that's a lot to process. It's heavy. But it definitely wakes you up.
It does. It forces you to look at your priorities. If your 3 minutes started right now, if the truck is coming around the corner, would you be ready? Not, did I go to church last Easter, but are you actually ready?
That's the question of the day. Robert's story is terrifying, yes, but it's also a wake-up call. He came back to say, don't wait.
Later is running out. That's the quote from the source that sticks with me.
Later is running out. We're going to leave you with that thought. This has been a heavy one, but an important one. Thanks for diving deep with us.
Always a pleasure.
Take a look at where you're standing. We'll see you next time on The Deep Dive.